is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Welcome to another 3-Mile Pod. I'm Cole Manbeck, joined as always by Derek Young, publisher and editor of K-State Online at On3. No John Kurtz this evening. However, we have a special guest in his place as Tom Beebe, father of All-American offensive lineman Cooper Beebe, as well as true freshman Camden, has joined us for this episode. Tom, first of all, thank you so much for jumping on with us. Before we get started, want to remind our listeners the 3-Mile Pod is brought to you by our friends at Holiday Distillery. Whether it's vodka or bourbon, your heart desires, Holiday Distillery has you covered. Go pick yourself up a bottle of Ben Holiday Bottled in Bond Bourbon, which I'm actually having a drink of right now, or 360 vodka as you begin to get your tailgate ready for the upcoming football season. Tom, what's your go-to drink of choice?
Captain Morgan and Coke.
All right.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to get you a bottle of Ben Holiday Bottled in Bond Bourbon, or maybe a little 360 vodka. Get that for you and your wife, and let you give it a try. It's good stuff. So,
absolutely.
Well, yeah. Well, hey, to set the stage for our listeners, and you joining the show actually started with an idea from a poster on KSO who suggested we have some parents of players come on the show, and I knew you were on the board, so I tagged you to see if you wanted to come on, and here we are. So, first of all, Tom, thank you again for joining us. But I also have to ask you, what's it like being the father of players on the team and also being on the message boards?
I tell you, to be on the message boards and be a father of a parent, you got to have thick skin, and you know what you're getting into when you get on the boards. But it's great entertainment. It really is. I mean, I've met a lot of guys, and I get a lot of, private messages from people, and I've met them out in public, and it's funny walking through the the concourse at a game, and somebody yells KC Gorilla, and that's my handle on the boards, and met some really great people. It's kind of funny. You get to know the personalities, and you get to kind of understand them. Some people think they know a lot about football. Some people think they know a lot about the inner workings of the program, and you listen to them and say, wow, that couldn't be further from the truth. But you don't out them. You just take it all in stride.
Well, so let me say thank you for never outing me for some of the stupid things I have probably said on this podcast before. And if we wanted to go back and review some of the things I maybe said early last season, I would probably cringe quite a bit. So I know there's a lot of instant reaction as part of the awards, and there's a lot of emotion there. But I just had to ask what that experience was like. So, hey, you guys, you don't have Friday Night Lights anymore, right? You and I were messaging about that. You may be down in Manhattan on some Fridays moving forward. Camden is now a true freshman at K-State, playing on the offensive line as well. What's that going to be like for you?
That, at least 1 year where you've only got one place to be every weekend. And, high school and college football, I mean, we went through it with Big Ten games and traveling all over for that. And sometimes, like this year, a trip to Lubbock, 2 years ago, there's no way to get to Lubbock on a Saturday morning for an 11 a.m. game. So it's divide and conquer. And, a little tougher that way. But this year, I mean, we've got everything mapped out for the whole year, where we're going, where we're staying, where we'll be the night before. And we'll be in a lot of Big 12 cities Friday and Saturday night. So it's going to be fun.
When did you know, or how soon did you know that you might have, for those that don't know, you had Colton, your son Colton played for Minnesota. Was there ever a time where I might have 3 kids play Power 5 football?
The interesting thing, Colton, my oldest one, I think he was in 4th grade when he told me he was going to play college football. And if anybody knew Colton growing up, he's the guy on the team that everybody else was mad at. I mean, he didn't know how to go through any drills other than 150%. Sprints at the end of practice, he's running full speed. His brothers are coming home going, what are you doing? You're making us look bad, whatever. But that was his approach. I had an inkling, he was very talented all the way through. I had an inkling he was going to play. So I thought there was a pretty good chance we were going to have at least one. No way did I ever think when they were growing up we would have three. And quite honestly, the fourth one, who graduated from Kansas State with an engineering degree, might be the best athlete in the family. He chose not to play college football. It was more important for him. He wanted to be an engineer. That was his goal. And he thought anywhere that he could get the engineering degree he wanted, he might not be able to play football there. And anywhere that he could play football, he couldn't get the engineering degree he wanted. So he made that choice.
Yeah, and when it came to a few of those college choices, obviously Camden picked Kansas State, Cooper picked Kansas State. Did you know pretty fast that those two were probably going to end up in Manhattan?
Yeah. The once you break into this, so the interesting thing, I think Colton honestly really wanted to play at Kansas State. Didn't come about. I think coming out of high school, he was a fullback type. Ended up playing fullback, tight end at Minnesota. He came out the same year Winston Dimmel came out. So you're not going to put a bunch of guys on scholarship there. Well, it didn't work out for him, but I think his love of Kansas State and his desire to play there kind of played in to the others. And Cooper, honestly, when he got the offer from Kansas State, I mean, it was pretty much done and over. I think that decision was made. I mean, I tried to get him to go look at other places. I mean, Stanford, Notre Dame, those guys were like, hey, are you sure he doesn't want to play offensive line? He said, we think he'd make a good offensive line. Come see us. And he's like, no, I'm good. And I think once he got that offer in his mind, he knew that's where he was going. He just didn't know how to tell us yet. And so that was pretty much a big deal. Now, Camden, I think, probably would have enjoyed the recruiting process a little more, but I think he would have ended up at Kansas State because he loves it there. But I think he would have enjoyed it a little more, but it was kind of interesting. Some of the college coaches would reach out to the high school coach and said, do we even have a shot? Well, you have a shot to wine and dine him, but you're not going to sign him. And they never told them that, but I think the writing was on the wall.
And when it came to Cooper, that inclination where he always wanted to pick K-State and it was pretty done as soon as the offer came, that was kind of stemmed from the relationship that you all had with Coach Mo Lattimore at the time, right?
Yeah, Coach Lattimore recruited me when I was in high school. That's how long he played. He played at Kansas State with my high school coach. And Mo treated me great when I was, recruiting. Of course, my senior year in high school, I broke my leg, ripped the ligament in half in my ankle, and the surgeon who operated on me couldn't say whether I would ever be back to full strength. So I wasn't going to get a scholarship offer. And Coach Lattimore kind of said, hey, go get your school paid for. Go somewhere you can take care of school. He said, that's what, that's the end goal. He said, go get it done. It was interesting because after my freshman year at Pitt State, he reached back out and, we kind of connected and any interest. And I said, man, I'm already starting as a freshman here. I ended in a good place and we're good to go. But it was funny. Coach Lattimore recruited Colton. He recruited Cooper. Cooper committed to play defensive line for Coach Lattimore, and that long-standing relationship, and I think the relationship we built with Spad during Colton's recruitment. I mean, those guys were so honest, open. Said, hey, here's the situation. Coach Lattimore, same thing. He told me, he said, Colton's too good not to get his school paid for. He said, go get it done. He goes, I'm sure they probably would have let him walk on or, something of that that nature. But they said, no, go get his school paid for.
Well, and you just hit on it, Tom, but most of the recruiting services had Cooper listed as a defensive tackle, right, on the defensive side of football. How quickly did he realize, or did you guys realize he was going to move to the offensive line?
Well, I think the interesting thing, his high school coach and myself, we told him all along, you're going to be an offensive lineman when you get in college. I mean, he played both ways in high school. And I look at defensive linemen probably as a little more twitchy, a little more explosive, things like that. I've been around football, my entire life, and we kept telling him, you're going to play offensive line. And it was funny that the night before we dropped him off, he reported that year the Shrine Bowl was in June, and they played that in Dodge City the night before he had to report to Manhattan. And during that game, I'm getting texts from Brad and a few other people commenting. He played offensive line in that game, commenting on his footwork, commenting on this and that. And the next morning we got there, and he all along was going to wear 98, defensive lineman, 98, this and that. And he got there and went, we were at Jardine unloading some things, and he went to the locker room, tests, medical stuff, things like that. And I get a text from him with a picture, and it had his nameplate with number 50. And he said, what does that mean? I go, it means you're an offensive guard. And so I reached out to Taylor and I said, hey, Cooper's asking questions about his number. And Taylor told me, he said, well, it's one of those numbers you could wear on the offense or the defense. And I said, just tell him. And I said, just call him and tell him. He knows it's coming. Just be open. And I think Coach Riley sat down with him and said, hey, we think you'd make a great offensive lineman. The prospects of getting on the field quicker, and sign me up. I'm in. That's all he had to hear. Somebody believed in him and said, you'd make a hell of an offensive lineman.
Well, I think their decision played well. Obviously, Cooper, an All-American, Big 12 Offensive Lineman of the Year, projected first round, potential second round draft pick in the 2024 NFL Draft. So I think everyone is probably pretty happy, including Cooper, with that decision. Hey, we're gonna go to a quick break. But before we do, I want to tell you about our friends at Home Field Apparel. I'm actually rocking a Home Field Apparel lavender shirt right now with one of the K-State retro logos. I mentioned it down in Dallas at Big 12 Media Days, but I packed a couple Home Field shirts. Actually almost lost a couple of them as Derek Young's hatch on his trunk popped up while we were driving across the road, thanks to Drew Galloway for not getting that shut, and then for John Kurtz recording video of me running across a highway-type street with my suitcase laying in the middle of the street with all my Home Field Apparel gear. And thanks to John Kurtz for not really giving a description in the Twitter video he tweeted out and raising a lot of questions on what the hell I was doing. So I say all that, I was glad that my Home Field stuff was not lost or damaged because I packed a lot of it on that trip. I've got 7 Home Field shirts in my closet. They've done 2 K-State drops over the last year. They did a huge drop back in June of 2023 or 2022 or July of 2022. And then in June of this last year, did another drop with another 11 K-State items. So encourage all of you to get out to homefieldapparel.com and grab some of that K-State gear. Home Field is one of the best in the business when it comes to college apparel. Over 150 schools that they are representative of and have gear for. And when they do these drops, it's quite exciting. I know I see a lot of Home Field stuff when I go around the stadium. So we have to thank our friends. Get on over to homefieldapparel.com. We'll go to break, and then we're going to come back and have more with Tom Beebe.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.
All right, we're back with Tom Beebe, so father of Cooper and Camden on the K-State offensive line. So, Tom, I read an excellent story from D. Scott Fritchen. I think it was last week when it published. You called Cooper the dancing bear What's the backstory behind that?
I mentioned earlier people commenting on his feet. He's had that footwork and the abilities. So, coaching them as kids, I made them do ladder drills all the time. Worked with youth football all the time. And to me, it was important to have them do the ladder drills, footwork, things like that. He took to that and always had incredible footwork, movement, things like that. Loved music. He was always dancing. Moves pretty well compared to the other boys from a when the music's on, he can move. He may be a little shy at times, but he moves very well. Loves to dance. Mom always called him her big teddy bear. I mean, off the field, he's pretty gentle. And so that's, from the time he was little, me and a couple of my buddies, we always called him the dancing bear. Great footwork, loves to move to the music.
One of the stats I read to Cooper, and he wasn't aware of this when I spoke to him at Big 12 Media Days in Arlington, is that in his entire career, he's only given up 3 sacks. All 3 were in his first season, 2 in the first game he played against Arkansas State. Now, he was unaware of that stat, but were you pretty aware?
It's funny because at every game, I bring binoculars. Every snap that he takes, I have the binoculars trained on him. I was pretty much aware of it. But so he's given up and been credited with giving up three sacks. But I'll tell you, over 4 years of playing, there are times that maybe Gilly saved him, or Noah Johnson saved him, or KT or Rivas or whatever. To go that long and only give up 3 sacks, you're pretty fortunate to have the guys next to you that you do, because they save you save them. It's more of a team deal. I could picture all 3 of those sacks in my head, and I could play those through my mind right now without even looking at them. So I was aware of what he was credited with. But we don't talk about stats or anything like that. It's funny, when he comes out of a game, the first thing, we're standing outside Veneer, the first thing you've got to do is you got to let mom hug him, kiss him, love up on him, tell him how great he looks in his uniform and blah, blah, that whole thing. And then I get my time with him. And the first thing he does, he may run through 5 or 6 plays where he's like, I got hat heavy on this one. My hands weren't right. I didn't do this or that. We get that discussion out of the way. So the thing is, you may not give up a sack that whole game, or you may win a bunch of reps or whatever, but you come out of a game, you got to know what you got to work on. Okay, what are you going to do next week? That's done and over with. It's, stats is in the book. You don't look back on them. So that's kind of the philosophy we take. And it's funny because he'll self-evaluate himself and tell me what he did wrong. And then I'll wait for Sunday and say, what did Coach Riley say you did wrong? So it's interesting discussion a lot of times.
Well, and another stat, 94 pass blocking grade since the 2021 season, which is the best among all offensive linemen in college football for Cooper as well. You kind of just hit on it, Tom, but I actually added in an outline of questions I was thinking through for you. I've always wondered, as a parent of an offensive lineman or a player, do you find yourself just glued to watching Cooper every play, or is it hard to not follow the ball too and where the ball is going on the field?
Yeah, it's like I said, the binoculars and unfortunately they bit the dust in the Sugar Bowl. We broke them, so I've got to get a new pair before the season starts. But yeah, I start out trained on him, watching the footwork, watching the steps, watching the hands, things like that. And then once the play is underway, the first few steps, throwing of the hands, things like that, I'm trained on him. And then I pick up and figure out, how far down the field deuces run the ball, or, how far Will's chucked it or who's going to catch it. But yeah, I a little of both. I'm trained on him, but then at some point you drop the glasses and pick up the play.
Well, how'd the binoculars break? You get a little nervous, or throw them down at something, or just fell off?
So my best friend, my best man, godfather to all the kids, he broke them. So anybody out there sees him because he's at it pretty much every game. Give him a hard time. He broke those and said he was going to buy me a new pair, but I haven't seen them yet.
One of the things Cooper said, that the reason why he came back to Kansas State, obviously he went to win another Big 12 championship, but he also wants to put his name on the Ring of Honor. Were you ready for him to say that? Was that a conversation that you two had as well?
No, the interesting thing, I didn't know anything about that. I mean, I knew because we'd had discussions, should he turn pro? And honestly, the easy answer, should have turned pro. And that's kind of, we were telling him, hey, here are your options, this and that. You could get hurt. This could happen. That could happen. I think he got the feeling we were leading him down that path. And I knew, I knew a long time before he even told us that he was going back, but I didn't know why. And honestly, Coach Riley was here for an in-home visit with Camden. And he didn't want to go there, didn't want to have that discussion. But when we were done talking about Camden or whatever, and before he left, I said, I asked him, I said, what do you think he should do? And then we got into that discussion. And Coach Riley was the one that broke it to me that was one of the things on Cooper's mind. And I about fell over. I never entered my mind. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. That was one of the big things, among other things, playing with his brother, graduating, everything he came up with and told me, said, I promised you I would graduate. And I said, all you've got left is student teaching before you graduate. And he couldn't do that during the season, so he had to do that in the spring. I said, you can come back and student teach a year from now and graduate, get drafted, bank the money, whatever, come back and finish school later. And he said, no, I made that commitment to you. And I'm like, okay, and every time I'd have a discussion with him, something new would come up. But when Coach Riley said, hey, this is the deal, and I sat and talked to him, and I thought, wow, okay. Started checking the boxes of all the reasons. And I had an argument to all of them. That one I didn't have an argument to. If you look at every picture taken while he was at Big 12 Media Day, the look on his face, the smile, the engagement, absolutely told me he made the right choice. And that's once in a lifetime. I mean, he made that comment. So once in a lifetime. You turn pro, he never gets to experience that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And the last one for me is to kind of look at just what he's accomplished under Connor Riley, the offensive line coach. You've been around a lot of college coaches. You played for a bunch. You had Colton in Minnesota. You've seen two different staffs at Kansas State, really. How would you characterize just what Connor Riley's meant to Cooper's career?
So, as a former offensive lineman, offensive line coaches are the greatest. I don't think I've ever met a bad one. Offensive line coach, even though Colton didn't play offensive line, I loved Coach Callahan at Minnesota. My offensive line coach, I didn't go to college to play offensive line. As second game of my freshman season, we had a guy blow a knee and go down, and he reached out to me and said, have you ever played offensive line? No, I haven't. Would you like to? I started from the third game my freshman year for the rest of my career. But the bond you have with a coach, and the thing about Coach Riley is we've gotten to know him enough. I know him as a dad. I know him as a coach. I know him as a person. Dude is just absolutely solid. And the relationship he has with Cooper, I witnessed them interact, the way he talks to him, the way he he keeps him in line, but encourages him. He's just top notch as an offensive line coach.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.
Yeah. Just circling back to the story you just told a few minutes ago, Tom. I mean, also the Ring of Honor, but also Cooper wanting to help Camden, which is something he's talked about a lot at Media Day and throughout this process to return and want to mentor his brother. I mean, how proud does that make you and your wife as parents, just to know, how mature he is to want to make that sacrifice when he could go make a lot of money, but also wants to take care of his little brother?
It's interesting because of all the kids, those two. So Camden's the only one that didn't get to play in high school with one of his brothers. Cooper graduated before Camden came in and started as a freshman. So they didn't get that interaction, but I've seen it a couple of times as Camden was going through high school. Cooper would tutor him, would reach out to him because, Cooper's told me Camden could potentially be better than me. And I think he firmly believes that. So at the, high school age, Camden was bigger, was stronger, had some things on Cooper. Now, could he be better than Cooper? He could be. But, we're just talking potential. And part of it is Cooper sees that, and he's like, okay, coming in as a freshman, it was a shock to Cooper. And he had to go through it. He lived it. He attacked it, whatever. I think coming in, he knew Camden wasn't quite ready from some aspects, not on the field, off the field, and the approach and things like that. And he kept telling me, I want to be there because I can help him get on track quicker, than he did. And the interesting thing, so Camden's been home several times on the weekend or whatever. I already see a difference in his approach than just a month and a half ago. I think he's making an impact and getting Camden mentally prepared and how to approach the game.
And I know you won't brag about yourself, Tom, but look, I think you were a second team offense or All-American on the offensive line in your Pitt State days. Is that right?
Yeah, and the interesting thing, so my senior year, we had two freshmen. Now we played a strong side and a weak side, so I flip-flop. I played on both sides of the line depending on the formation. But the thing is, we had two freshmen on the other side of the line, so we only had really three offensive linemen that were experienced. And when they told me I'd made All-American, I was shocked. We did lead the nation in rushing. We ran the ball like 98% of the time. And I don't care if it was, 3rd and 13. That's a first down we can make. And playing with the guys, and if you're picked as an All-American, it means that 5-man unit's pretty good because it takes the guy to your left and the guy to your right to make you the player you are. And we had three guys that were experienced, had played together for a while. I knew what he was thinking. I knew what he was thinking. So it's a 5-man unit that makes somebody an All-American.
And that's why I asked you that, Tom, because you understand offensive line play very well, having played it. And I wanted to ask you what's the most important trait when it comes to a good offensive line. And obviously K-State having really 7 guys with a ton of starting experience back. You count Taylor Portier as well. How important is that continuity and knowing what each other's doing on the field and having a good offensive line?
It's absolutely huge. And you watch a game, and it's funny because when the boys are home or whatever, and they're all together and we're watching football, and one of them will make a comment. They're commenting about something 2 levels deep on the defense. Well, here comes the safety, or here comes a cornerback, or here comes, and I'm like, how can you, how are you guys picking that up? And they're talking, and you can almost anticipate the stunts, the twists, the things that are going to happen And if you've got a guy, and whether that's your center or your guards, whatever, and you're talking to the guy next to him, you can combat. A lot of times it's 5 guys, and they may be sending 6, but those 5 guys can block those 6 if they're hand in hand with the guy next to them. Somebody's coming around, you're going to pass him off. You're going to hold him up. You're going to do a duo or whatever, and then you've got that guy coming around. You have to know, and you have to trust that guy next to you. I'm going to help him, but I'm going to pass him off because that guy's coming. And if you don't trust the guy next to you, and you lock up on a guy and you stay on him, there you got somebody running right by you to nail the quarterback. So it takes all 5 of them, and the communication is huge.
I meant to ask Cooper this at Big 12 Media Day, but is there a defensive front alignment that is harder to go up against as an offensive lineman from your perspective, or maybe from talking to Cooper or your kids? Is it a 3-man front? We've seen K-State with the 3-3-5, guys coming from all over, or is it traditional 4-man? I'm curious for your thoughts on that.
I always preferred to have a guy on me. So if you're playing guard or whatever, you'd rather have a 4-man front, because I always felt like I could get. And part of the thing is, you don't have to overpower or you have to block, and you have to occupy that guy, and you have to get in the right position to create a lane or whatever. I mean, you want to finish, you want to drive that guy out of there. But if he's on me, and I'm smarter than he is, and my technique is better, I can get into the position that I'm gonna block that guy. If you're chasing guys and you have to chase down a linebacker, sometimes you're going to get there and he's gone already. So I always preferred a 4-man front if I was playing guard, because that guy's on me. And
Yeah. I mean, I played offensive line in high school, but I don't look anything like an offensive lineman. Obviously, it was 3A in Kansas, and I always preferred the heavier, slower guys than the quick guys, and always like to have a guy head up over me because you weren't guessing as much, and you could kind of predict where they're coming from. So, hey, couple fun ones for me, Tom, and then we'll get you out of here. But you had 4 boys growing up, and all big kids, and I think you've gotten this question on the boards before, but what was that grocery bill like for you guys?
So it's interesting. So mom took care of all the groceries, and $500 a week, $500-600 a week with groceries, and she's going through the grocery store, pushing one cart, pulling another cart, $500-600, and then on Tuesday we're going back for additional milk. We've already gone through 5 gallons of milk. Grocery bills were not fun.
Yeah, no, I'm sure about that. We've heard the Gronkowski brothers, right, have fights and breaking up fights in the household. Did you ever have to deal with that, you and your wife, with the boys and getting into it?
Yeah, the interesting thing. So my family, we grew up the same way. I mean, my dad had 2 brothers, and they grew up fighting. I had 3 older brothers myself. We grew up fighting, but that's all at home. You're bickering, and it's, it was like 2 against 2. So you always teamed up with one of the other ones. So it was 2 against 2, but that's all at home. And that's when you're needling each other, things like that. But as soon as you walk out the door, it's 4 against everybody. And no matter how much they bickered or fought or needled each other at home, as soon as they were out the door, it's they were like this, and you put up with the fighting, the WWE, the jumping off the couch, off the top ropes, that type of stuff. But when they're out in public, it's family.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite Big 12 city outside of Manhattan that you visited?
Austin, we had a fun time in Austin. Baylor, I liked their stadium. That was a fun one to visit. Ames is okay because my wife is from Iowa, and so that's a big family affair. So that's always fun, but nothing like Manhattan.
Yeah,
none of them are like Manhattan.
Yeah. Well, hey, we appreciate the time, Tom. It was a lot of fun to chat with you and learn more about Camden and Cooper and just about your guys' history together. So we appreciate you jumping on. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me anytime.
Yeah. Hey, let's get together for a drink before a game this year, and let's meet back up at the Big 12 Championship again.
Sounds great.
All right. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.